Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's session. I am Dr. Saurabh Gangobadhyay, and I'm going to moderate the webinar today. First, I would like to welcome our distinguished guest, Dr. Veera Talukdar, Ms. Atrayee Chakroborty, and Dr. Somendranath Bandyopadhyay. We are all gathered here to discuss a topic which is skill of adaptation is the key to success. So this topic perhaps can be better explained by a line that is, you must be shapeless, formless like water. So why do we need to be like water? What's the use of it? Well, because water shows us the value of adaptation. Adaptation is the basic nature of every living creature in the world, starting from bacterium to human race. Everyone knows the value of adaptation. It's the basic instinct, and with the help of it, we find the way to survive in the ever-changing and challenging environment. The history of Earth shows that how dinosaurs, once raging in the world and suddenly wiped out from the face of the earth as they were unable to adapt in the changing environment. We also know that how every empire once ruled all over the world and ultimately faced a shameful defeat as they were unable to adapt to the change. We know how different ancient culture, once rituals and beliefs, once they thought to be an inseparable norms, but now they were all rejected by the people as they were unable to recognize the change in the culture. On the other hand, we experienced how industries, organizations once ruled the economy of the whole world are now become obsolete as unable to adapt new technologies. So the skill of adaptation is required in every sector, every industry, every department, and every human relationship. So our distinguished guests will enlighten us and will show us the divinity and enormity of the adaptation. If you participate in this webinar, you will be able to understand the quantum of adaptation and how important it is to recognize the value of adaptation in your life. Also, I would like to share that there will be a question answering session. The audience can type the questions in the comment box. Also, to get the participation certificate, the student have to fill up a form, and a link of the form will be shared after a few times. So now let's begin our session by introducing the Honorable Director of our institution, Dr. Somendranath Bandyopadhyay. Dr. Bandyopadhyay is a doctor by profession and an administrator by choice. He is a vital part of our institution, and he has done a great job for HIM in a way to make it a praiseworthy institution. He is dynamic. He is open-minded person. Dr. Bandyopadhyay is a patent holder of an innovative course in pharmaceutical management from HRD Ministry of India. He is also a member of American Astronomical Society, as he has a keen interest in this field. He has written several books. He has published over 50 articles in many international and national journals. So now I would like to invite Dr. Bandyopadhyay to begin the session by introducing the theme of the webinar. Sir.
Thank you so much, Saurabh. I am audible, I think, right?
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir, you are.
After so much of things that you have told about me, it will be very hard for me to speak. I was myself amazed at those things. Anyway, I heartily welcome Dr. Veera Talukdar, Principal Sriram College, Mumbai, and of course Atrayee Chakroborty, well-known psychologist, and Saurabh, of course, our very own Saurabh and Joita is there. And I welcome all the students, faculty members who are here. I see 130 plus participants. So I welcome all of you. Now, today's topic, that is skill adaptation, is key to success. So basically, what we are talking about is the adaptability. Now, Saurabh has already talked about how the dinosaurs got into extinction, and we don't want to be dinosaurs, right? So we want to be humans, and we want to stay in this world. And so, how do you adapt? Now, this pandemic that is going through, and we are going through it, has opened a lot of eyes. The eyes that we have opened is that though we have developed a lot, but there is still miles to go. A small COVID 19 virus has taken the world by surprise. And with so much scientific evolutions and so great scientists, Nobel laureates, so on and so forth, still from the last year to this year, we are fighting to get the vaccine. Some are telling in the third stage. Russia is telling that it is, but still now in India, we don't have the vaccine in our hand right now. Even when the vaccine comes, giving the population size that we have, 130 crore population, by the day all of us will have the vaccine is again a very big question. So, adaptability, development, research are the pros of any kind of education system we are in. The second thing that we are going through in this pandemic, and many students and many faculty members, not only faculty, students, everybody has gone through, is a bit of a psychological stress. Now, we are a social animal, actually, if it's talk like that. So we like to merge with one another, we like to talk with one another, we like to intermingle, we like to travel. Now, everything was stopped in March, April. We were totally enclosed, and maybe going maximum to the roof was your luxury. So at that point of time, it was a stress on most of us. And how we dealt the stress, how we took it to our advantage, is something that shows our adaptability. If we got frustrated and if we had gone to the roads, then things would have been much worse from where we are. Now, slowly and steadily, we have to hope for the best. We have to hope that slowly and steadily the number of COVID cases will slow down, hopefully. And hopefully, our scientists all over the world will be able to come up with a vaccine. And also, our manufacturing industry or the pharmaceutical industry should try to innovate ways so that this huge population can get the vaccine as fast as possible. Though daily life has started with lockdown 4 now on the way, and now we are hearing, yesterday we heard from UGC that from 1st November our classes will be opened also. Now there are challenges, how to get the class students into the college, how to get the students to stay with social distancing. These are something we have to adapt. We have never adapted to these things. So these are new challenges, new system, new world we are living in. Wearing a mask, of course, I'm talking, so I'm not wearing a mask. Generally, throughout the day, you wear a mask, you use hand sanitizer, and so on and so forth. So these are adaptation. But with this adaptation, what has shown us that we are strong. Whatever things comes, we will survive. Yes, there will be casualties like this if we are not ready. But maybe this pandemic has opened our eyes that we should be ready for certain things which we do not think will happen. Like this pandemic was like a Hollywood movie. We had seen a Hollywood movie a few years back, and it was something we never thought will happen, and it happened. So things like this happen, and we should get ready for this. In my childhood, I think most of you have read it. I had read a poem. Now I don't remember the poem. I cannot recite that. But the meaning of the poem was that whenever you get success, you shouldn't be too happy, or whenever you get failure, you shouldn't be too sad. You should always strive to do better. So our contention in this pandemic, it should be that we should always try to innovate ourselves, always study. The students who are there now, you are studying online, and though maybe from November the classes will open, but then also this online offline mode will be there. It will not be the regular classes. So again, we have to adapt to the kind of education there we are in. We have to adapt to the social bearings, our friend, how we'll go out, how we'll go to cinema halls when these things open up for the students especially. Now, of course, you have Netflix and so on and so forth. So we have changed. So evolution changes, and maybe at a point of time your cinema halls will be extinct. I don't know. I'm not against the cinema hall, so don't take it into that criteria. Or I'll see PVR and other coming say against me that sad said PVRs are, these movie halls are becoming extinct. No, but well, there will be changes. So this change, adaptability is slowly and steadily. We have to understand. We have to take into our fold without thinking too much. If we think too much, of course, we have a psychologist who will talk about how our brain gets evolved in these things. So we don't take this thing too seriously. Take it easy, try to study, talk with your faculty members. If you are in stress, all our faculty members are there. For other college students also, I know their faculty members must be helping them at this point of time. The faculties can also interact with one another. We have now Zoom, web, so many things like WhatsApp call. So technology has developed, that is becoming easy, because if this thing happened in 1960s or 70s, at that point when technology was not that developed, it would have been much harder. Now with the technology developed, at least with the mobile, I don't know, but I see the new generation, even ourselves also, we spend a lot of time in the mobile. So without that thing, the mobile is not there, then this pandemic would have been really painful. So hopefully we will adapt further, and this webinar that Saurabh and Joita has organized from HIM, we hope that this webinar will be good. This is a 2-day webinar. I think tomorrow there is another webinar they have organized. So all the students, I request you to listen to the speakers, try to take notes. If they are telling you something, try to incorporate that in your life. Just don't participate for a certificate anyway you'll get, but try to get the knowledge that they are giving you and take it forward. With that, I'll not talk too much because we have our guest who will be interacting with you. So I'll be giving it back to Saurabh. So Saurabh, you can take it back.
Thank you so much, sir, for giving a nice introduction. And indeed, pandemic opens our mind and reminds us the use of adaptation. Definitely. Now, let's talk about someone who has more than 25 years of experience in teaching across different level of education. She is a PhD from Jadavpur University in artificial intelligence and pursuing postdoctoral studies in IIT Mumbai. She had received many awards in her life, starting from junior scientist till the Best Principal Award. She has written several books which are used as a reference by both UG and PG students. More than 10 students have completed their PhD under her guidance, and 7 are in process. She has more than 75 publications, both in national and international journals. And at present, she is the principal of Sri Ram College, Bangalore. She is a PhD guide. She is a moderator and a paper setter in several universities and institutes of eminence. Please welcome Dr. Veera Talukdar, ma'am. Dr. Veera Talukdar.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are. Yes.
And I just wanted to know, I just wanted to share whether my screen is there and whether I am audible or not.
Yes, you are audible and visible, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Shaurav. And I know you people are my students, so it's
Yes.
my pleasure that Joita and Saurav have called me for this interaction. I'm honored. And at
Thank
the
you, ma'am.
same time, also convey my uh, reverence to your director, Dr. Shomendranath Banerjee. He really spoke very well, and especially at the pandemics and the current scenario, nothing more could be more better dealt with than this situation, and how he very coolly explained to it that how things are changing. But what I wanted to convey to you that as I have more than 25 years of experience, so with the 2 decades, more than 2 decades of education, been in the education line, and for your information, my educate to be in the education line, it was my desire to be here, and I was not by uh, force that I have come into education. I always wanted to be in this line, and I remember getting a job in TCS in 2008, and I had a discussion with my husband, and he coolly said, "The choice is yours. What you want to do." So whatever I am today, I am blessed that my husband always stood by me, and my students who were there, who always inspired me to keep on going in this way. And for your information, I had to change over a period of time. My learning and my teaching pattern did change over a period of time. I was basically a bio student. I studied medical microbiology. Then I came down and started finding computers. For the first time, I touched computers was in late 1990s, and that was very inspiring for me. That what should I do? How can I utilize this technology? I was getting so much of data. We were that time depending too much on wet labs, for doing any such research. And coolly, slowly, I progressed from wet lab, and I was thinking of computers to be done, and how could I incorporate computers and its knowledge into my teaching, and rather into my research also. That was the time when I joined ISI as a research fellow. When I joined with them, I came to know about the data sciences. Now data sciences is coming in a very big way, but that time for the first time we were having some raw data and how to assemble those raw data, how to get along doing with them. So slowly, with time progress, I thought about why not do something for the people, like commercialization of our technology. So with that, what happened was that I completed my MCom. Now, the moment I completed my MCom, the commercial part was made very easy to me. How could I do? Because that time before that, I was only with the science areas and totally working with molecular biology and bioinformatics. It was coming in 2008, and so with commerce background, with the commerce enhancing, I could use my intelligence for the commercial purpose. So what Saurabh has rightly said, that you need to change, you need to adopt to yourself. Until unless you adopt to yourself, you will never be able to do anything in your life. The most important part, that as we all know, Charles Darwin is the most what should I say, the most innovative person who has changed all our lives and has made us very easy, because it's, as per him, it's not the strongest person who can survive, or the most intelligent species that would survive in this earth. It's only the one who can adapt to the changes will be able to survive. So I'm not talking about survival like if you want to live, but your quality of life should be very clear, how you get along doing with your. I'm just sharing my screen. Is my screen clear?
Ma'am, your network is down, but your
Yeah,
screen
Mumbai is
is
having
clear. Yeah, your screen is
Mumbai is
clear.
having heavy rain.
Okay, yeah, we can see that. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So
Your presentation, yeah, it's
yeah, yeah,
visible.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is what he said, that the strongest person or the strongest species to survive would be the one who can change, who can adapt to the changes that are there. And this adaptability, it should be from within. It cannot be forced on anybody. There's always a difference between a command and a demand. You should adapt to the demand, and then you command your own progress, how you slowly go from one part to the next part. We all know that education has played a vital role in all of our lives, but technology driven is the most important. Many of us have an argument to say that technology led innovations do not in themselves lead to improved education practices. Now, this is an argument that I said. There are many controversies to the areas, that some says it is technology plays a very vital role, and some says no, it does not play a vital role. But when we are talking about this, we face two main problems. Now, at the present scenario, if we look around, the students have access to large real set datas. What we mean about the data. Now, if they want to have in-depth knowledge about a particular topic, they can go down to Google. They have the Googles with them. You go down to YouTube's, you have the visualizing raw materials with them, and they have everything at their fingertips. Their gadgets are there, their various types of gadgets are there, which they can easily do it. but they do not have the real opportunity. And what example is that we mean to say is real opportunity means what they should do with the data, how far they can go along assembling the data in trying to form something new. And when in education we are talking about, it should be together. Both the realistic part and the virtualistic part should be coming together. They should not be kept far aside. Now, as a teacher, it's our responsibility how we do it. We have to make the students comfortable in their areas. Now, when we were there teaching in the classrooms, we always had this opportunity of asking them questions. I remember when I started first teaching online, and it was not for here that was there. I was supposed to take a small crash course with IIM Indore, and that was my first instinct with IIM Indore. And I remember that I was just behaving the same way I used to behave in the classroom, and I kept asking. I was to get irritated when I did not get any answers from the students, because we are so used to asking questions and getting. And at the same time, the students were also not used to the whole of this new module, how they were going through with this. And we really had a challenge. The same thing is right now when I was talking with our counterpart in Delhi, and they said the students, even affluent students, are not getting used to this. It's not something that in villages we are not having the net services, or some people are not having the smartphones. That technology, it's the not the technology, what physical technology that we are talking about. It is the mental technology that we are not able to enhance ourselves and get adapted to the mental technology. We somehow always wanted to go back to the state where we were previous to March 2020. So that becomes a real challenging for us. And now what is happening with the real data is available to the students hardly have the time to analyze the data. They see it and they forget it off. They don't bother to write it down, because they say that next time when I want to see it, I can again see it on the YouTube. I can again see, search for it in the Google. So why should I note it down? Now this leads to another massive problem, is that they lose their memorizing powers. You know how they memorizing is not only physical memorizing that we are talking about. When you write it down, it gets encrypted in your mind. There's always encryption, decoding, and coding. It goes along. The whole process is one after another. It goes along. But until unless you analyze the whole situation and you write it down, you would never be able to utilize it, and you will never be able to reproduce the whole scenario in your life. I know in India, the education, there is a huge gap between an industry and an institute. There's a huge gap between an industry and an institute. But still, we would always like to collaborate with the students to have a triangle or a pyramid being formed, where teachers would be collaborating with the students as per the requirement of the industry. Now, industry requirements must be made as per the demands of the situation. Now, the demand of the situation is technological driven. So you cannot stay away from technology. So it's a cascading effect, one after another, it goes along. Now, the industry wants technologies to be used. Now, you want your students to use technology. Now, who's going to teach the students to use technology? The industry is not going to teach the students to use the technology. It's the students who, it's the teachers who will be helping the students out in teaching the technology. Now, for that, who are the teachers at this present moment, it's very difficult for them to adopt to the new technology, because they are already in their own comfort zone where they have not been using the technologies. And so it becomes very difficult for them to promote technology with the students. Now, the second difficulty that we came across is students rarely learn to compare or generalize from individual studies to build an integrated understanding of the past. Now, this is a very rare thing that we are talking about. They have to compare or generalize. You cannot have a situation which would be same for all individuals on this earth. The same situation could arise, but your way and your approach to the situation, your problem would be different. because you have an individualistic approach. Nextly, your amenities may not be the same, your financial status might not be the same, your physical environment might not be same. Just for today, I'm just informing you. In Mumbai, we are having a huge rainfall, and most of the transport is off. And I was just thinking it might be that I cannot get the internet connection. So what was the next option that I had to, if I had to continue with you all, had to meet you all? So there again, I was a bit puzzled, that how should I go along? How much of my mobile data? My son came up and said, Mama, don't worry. We have the mobile data. We'll help you out in that. So now this is what I said, that comparison gets along. Generalizations cannot be done, that I'm X is teaching on Y mode and why not Y will teach. It depends. You have to have a blended mode, as our director sir had said, that blend now with the UGC coming up with the new guidelines, we have to go with the blended mode. We cannot go along with one generalized process. Even with the UGC coming up for the final semester students, it's a generalized format. Now in Mumbai, we are also facing a huge problem with TY exams and COVID situation. Teachers, I have lost 4 or 5 of my teachers in COVID, and some are quarantined. Staffs are not there, but we have to continue. We have to do our work. We cannot take any arguments for it. So now we took the help of technology. Now, when we take the help of technology, then only we would be able to suffice the needs of the society wherever we are. Now, once we are done with this particular part, we would always talk about is ICT. Now, this ICT becomes a very important part in all of our life. Previously, when I was teaching some 15 years back, I remembered that PowerPoint presentations I was teaching that time in ISWBM, and PowerPoint presentation was always a luxury, and that MBA के students के लिए ही है और किसी को नहीं मिलेगा. So with the diploma students, they were just say नहीं मिलने का है. 15, 20 years back I'm talking about, when I was there in ISWBM. So that time ICT use was very this thing, only computer labs maybe we were supposed to go down and to do it. But time progressed. We all took new opportunities and to enhance our own selves with ICTs. And we made that this ICT is a very powerful tool which will always give you an enhancement for your thought process. Your thought process is your individual thought process. How you speak, how you talk, how you deliver, how your students will take you. It all depends on your way of using technology. When you're speaking, I think the psychologist madam who's following me would be able to give it a better way. But when I go to my classrooms, I'm open to all the what should I say, to all questions from my students, that whether this technology would be really helping them out, or I am just distancing myself from the students by using the technology and I'm not speaking. I can put on the videos and I sit down, let the video speak for itself. But it again depends how you take it, how the students take it, whether they are willing to adopt to the new changes that they want, how much interactive you can be with the new formation of technological enhancement in your institutes. All institutes do not have the same level of technological enhancements, but still we have lots of free softwares and applications which can be derived from. Now there is a very common problem that we all have faced in our life as teachers, that the real purpose of technology or the real purpose of teaching is to reach out to the students and help them to make their own life very comfortable. They should be able to progress in such a way that they will remember you always in your life. It's not that you pass them off, you grade them off. The grading and getting a certificate would be enough for them. So the real purpose of education should be to make them a complete and a holistic person. So for that, technology will never ever be always be a supplement for your individuals. It's the many of the teachers are afraid of that if technology takes our place, then our demands would not be anymore in the institute. None of the institute would be requiring us because they are already having technology. That doesn't mean you play the video and students hear it. No, even when you're teaching online, you always have an options of interaction. As Saurav has said, we'll also be having a question answer session. Now, why this? Even we as teachers want to feel you, that what you do, how you are, what are the questions that are bubbling in your minds. We also would like to know it. Now, there is always a big dissonance between beliefs and practices. What we believe and what we really practice. Academics' conception of teaching is oriented towards supporting students' learning and problem solving. I always again repeat, academics' conception of teaching is oriented towards supporting students' learning and problem solving. They should be able to solve the problems. They should be able to implement their knowledge in their real lifetime when they face any real lifetime situations. Nowadays we are teaching martial arts in our colleges. These are no more said to be an extracurricular. They are said to be co-curricular because you want to have a holistic development of the students. But what exactly happens is the actual teaching intentions are always to the knowledge transmission. We only remain in one way, that is the knowledge transmission. What I said, whether it reached you or not, and if it reached you, you would be able to implement your knowledge on your writing your answers during exams time. So how are we assessed? Your teachers have been assessed by your performances. I remember one of my students in NSHM when I was teaching in NSHM Kolkata, Nishant. I remember him very well, and he's still in touch with me. And I consider him, rather all my children there. I really consider him to be a very naughty son of mine. But he has really made a life for himself. He has changed totally, with the special care that you can give as teachers and the special out of home comforts that the students can find in you would always help each other in enhancing your personality. So the main aim of a teacher should be giving a holistic approach to the student. And that's why what happens is you need to change. You cannot say that I have done this for a long time, so I will not do it again. Nothing is remains for permanent. Permanent change is a must. You cannot say change. I'm not going to change. Whatever happens, I'm not going to change. Situation like this COVID situation has helped us a lot. But even though if the COVID situation was not there, we did adapt to changes. COVID situation has taught us in a very hard way, taught us in a very bitter way. It has left a very bitter memories with us. But at the same time, if you think enough, it always has a positive side. You had the time to enhance your own self, to gather knowledge about your own self, be with yourself, and that's what was missing in Mumbai. I come from a very peaceful place called a small state, Madhya Pradesh, Jabalpur, and ours is a very backward area, so we don't go into any hush bus and any show systems and all that. I was married in Bengal, then I moved to Mumbai. So my transitions in the three states was totally different. And if I could not adapt to it, I would not have survived in this scenario today. Everywhere, everything is there. We cannot say that we are not going to do it, because this is the age of information. This is the age of technology. This is the age of giving up and taking in. Now, what you give up your old habits, your old thoughts, and what you take in is a new that comes. Each day is a new one, and we have to adapt to this new changes, and which will be, as we might be very slow in adapting to the changes, but slow and steady, we all know, will be winning in the last. Though we are poorly equipped to cope with the explosions, right now we are having a technological explosions, everywhere, everybody is talking about resources, this resources, that resources, but all resources are technological resources. And we are being cornered. Then until unless you use the technology, you are said to be outdated. No, you don't say outdated, but what you say is, yes, whatever technology is required for me, I'm going to take that technology up. Now, basically, there are three parts. If we talk about, there is a governing variables. Now, I previously said when I was discussing my other slides, no two situations can be same. There are certain variables that would be there. You might have a problem. We all are having COVID situation. We are all undergoing lockdown scenarios. And what happened is that we have to teach. We have to reach out to the students also. Now, how do you do it? I got students who are staying in Jaunpur, and he has to give his exams, online exams, and he cannot come down from there. And I asked him about his police station. I asked him whether he has an Anganwadi, whether he has a panchayat there, where he can get the Wi-Fi. He said, no, in our area, nothing is there. Only the police station has. Now, police station has the limitations. They will not allow anybody to access their Wi-Fi range. So then I traced their SP, I traced their DM, and I make sure that he is allowed. I send them the timetable, and I gave them the time, which is the time he'll be sitting and giving his online exams. So now this is how I had to change to my adaptability. And this is my variable. This is, in my college, I found this variable to be done. My situation, this is my variable situation, and it was governing me. My intention was that the child should be able to give his exams. Now, how is he able to give exams? This is the particular way I thought about that he should not miss upon a year because of the COVID situation. Now, again, by action strategy, how I dealt with the action strategy was that I inquired for me if he is having any near my government agencies. We can have the government, we can ask the government agency, we can force the government agencies to do. Now, we also had certain students who come from a very poor background or who have lost their mobiles and their valuables during the floods that were recently was there in Maharashtra. The Sangli, Satara districts, they were completely washed up, and with the cyclone that was there. So now we again approach certain NGOs that if you could help. We asked certain people in the localities if they could come forward and do it. For that we had to, and we had just given 15 days of time. And you won't believe, I personally have been calling up from till 2 o'clock in the night, coordinating with them. So that was my action strategy, how to reach out, how to make it happen for the students and be technologically driven. And the consequences right now is I have 1,873 students who would be appearing for their online exams from 25th, and all are there in the network right now with me. We have occurred. So now this is what your action plan should be there, your technological plans. Now there is a two-way system that works. One is a single loop learning. You have the consequences, and if your consequences are not as per your requirement, you again look back to your strategy. What action strategy did you take? Now, if your action strategies, you always have a point. We always say, like Newton's third law, action and reaction. So now reaction is not as per my desire. I always look up to my actions. So my actions are helping me to decide upon my result. So I am result oriented, I am consequence oriented. So I will be changing my strategy. Still, I get my desired result. I desired consequences. Now there is a double loop. Now where the double loop is, where you go, your sequences, your results, you are not getting the results. You again look back to your governing variables. What are the governing variables that you have? Whether you are able to change or modify the variables, whether you are able to do something with the variables that are there. If you are able to change the variables, you again have that time and thought too about the actions that you can change, the different strategies you can frame, the way you can reach out to your desired consequences. This basically means that we generally have lots of informations everywhere, and we are being bombarded with technological learnings everywhere. I would not take much of your time. I'll just take a small. I tried to make it in a very fast way. I do not know whether you people would be understanding or not, but this is just the ICT that we generally used in education. The first basic part is on the top. You can find is that the mind maps. We like to have the mind maps of the students. We would, as teachers, we would like to know what is playing in the minds of the students. If you are able to study the students, if you are able to understand the students, it would be very easy for you to reach out to the students, and at the same time, the students would learn much more than what you want them to learn. They will be more successful in life than your desire this thing. So there are a number of technologies that are there which can be used. There is Koggle, there is Iowa, there is Poplet. These are some of the software, some of the applications that can be used. Now, again, as a teacher, the most important thing is that what I would basically like to do is to find out whether my students have really done it or not. So for that, the only way to judge my teaching and the understandability of the students is assessment. I need to assess the students. Now, how can I assess the students on an online mode? In a classroom, we ask questions. We might give them surprise test. I know many of my students were always punished in the classrooms, make them stand and whatever, embarrass them, scolded them. But whatever it is, it has to be done. So for that, we again have various softwares, various applications, Google Forms, Microsoft Forms, Testmos, EcoPlace. They all will be able to use. These are there, and most of them are free of cost. If you're going for an educational purpose, they are free of cost. You need not have to purchase them, and they are not that very costly. And next again is the productivity tool that we are talking about. Now, what do you mean basically mean by productivity? Now, when you have taught them, whether it has reached them in the right mode or not, you have to assess them, find them out, whether you are able to reach. Many of us have been, especially with the management institute, like eminent management institute like yours, you always been using uh, case studies, very important case studies, and these case studies always helps you to find out whether your students is in the right mode and is in the productive mode or not. You give them edu puzzles, you can give them Google Docs and ask them. You can excuse me, you can create edu creations and ask them what to do, how it is. You can also have site clothes being done. So you need to change, and by that you can also reach out to the students. The students would be learning at the same time. It's not that they do not want to interact, and it might be many a times I've seen initially my son used to switch on his lectures in the Google Meet and go here and there. Then I asked what it was that he's wanting to do. So he said, no interaction. We don't have the rights to ask questions. Whether we understood or not, nobody's bothered. So I thought, okay, now this is another problem that we are facing. Then we have the learning management systems, which we all have. We have Canvas, we have Microsoft Teams, we have Module, very free of cost, that is being done by the IITs. Then we have the ClassFlow, we have Quiz. These are all learning management systems. How you manage your system, how you manage your learning. Presentation tools, we also have the other than the PowerPoint presentations, we have the other tools. Pluton, you can always conduct competitions in these presentation tools also for the students. That would always be a combination of productive tools. You can match them off. You need to change. You cannot be only one way driven. No more only one way learning. It has to be a both way learning. So if you don't change, your students will never ever be able to enhance themselves. You will never be able to produce your products in the proper way that you wanted to do your life. It's always been a pleasure. I always find myself to be very honored and grateful that my student Joita, she was, though she was a very very good student. She was a topper of my class of that time in the university. She was a topper, and she has come up to say this age where she herself is able to deliver to the students, and I'm really proud of. And I still remember that she in post graduation days she has presented a paper and with confidence. This is at that time we did not have so much of technology, but then all hindrance did not stop her. Nishant, I talked about, didn't stop her. These are all my inspirations. They always keep me going. Many a times I do think of retiring and I get down to my social work, but these are my inspirations. No, these are the students. One of my students is Joy Chakroborty here, who is now the CEO of Hinduja Hospital. So these are some people. Other students are, someone is in doing is a professor in University of Massachusetts. These because of the changes, you have to have within them, and you need to reach out to them. Until unless you do it, you would not be able to give the desired what the students want from you. Video conferencing, we are on the Zoom platform, we have Skype, we have Cisco, we have WebEx, Google Meet, etc., etc., etc. It goes along. The list is never small. Now there is a big problem that was there when you do maths or when you do accounts or when you do any solving problems. You on online, teachers say it was a difficult problem. Then we again searched for it, what it was. We approached Google, then we got a list of it. Whiteboard is there, Jamboard is there. You have gist of them where you can use them. And you won't believe these companies have come forward to give us at free of cost. And it was purchased by a university. We come under University of Mumbai, and it was purchased by the University of Mumbai to use for us on a bulk format. Under Mumbai University, we have 983 colleges, and all the colleges have then access to all this. And most important is you would be having certain quizzes, which would always keep the students on their toes. It should not be that 45 minutes, 1 hour lectures, like I'm giving you a lecture right now, and I do not have any access to how much I've been able to deliver to you all or not. But then it remains a big question mark. As a teacher, I am never satisfied if my students don't ask me questions. If I ask, I am very happy if they ask me questions, because I know I have been able to trigger their mind somewhere, and that triggering point has given them their answers. I'll just tell you a very short incident that really happened in life. When Abdul Kalam, I had the opportunity and the privilege to be with him and be on the same dais. He once had visited Kunnur when he was the president of India. And that time he heard that Field Marshal Manekshaw, he was bedridden and he was hospitalized. And as they had worked together and they were contemporaries, he wanted to meet him. And as it was not scheduled, but within time it was all scheduled, and he went and met Manik Shah. And he said, Sam, he spent some 15 minutes with him, and he said, Sam, what can I do for you? Or how can I help you out? Do you have any grievances? And Manik Shah said, yes, I have grievances. So he said, what should I help you? And he said, I am not well enough to stand and salute my president. So he says, yes, change, adaptability. I'd adapted to this, that your thought process had given me enough of respect instead of giving it physically. Your mental respect was much more. But we are contemporary, so we respect each other more than what we do physically. And to wind up, I would say things change. And the only thing that constant is change. It's up to you to be adaptable. Whether you want to survive, if you want to survive, you have to adapt to the changes. It's generally been said that giraffes were uh, uh, only species which survived a particular period because uh, they were able to stretch their necks up and reach out to the leaves on the top. So thank you very much, and that's all for my side.
Thank you very much, ma'am. You have covered a deep area in most spectacular way. We came to know that how you changed your life and accept adaptation. You showed how Darwin told us about adaptation, and but you also said that a good educational practice does not only depending upon technology. Also, the way of teaching should be associated with the need of the industry. Also, you pointed out that how ICT is changing the way of education. Also, you pointed out that teaching should be two-way, and it should be focused on the way of enhancing the problem-solving abilities. Ma'am, your way of presentation and your charisma is the reason why students love you and respect you for the rest of their life. Perhaps that's the reason a quote is applicable for you is that charisma is the fragrance of soul. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. So I'm honored, Saurabh. I'm honored.
Me too, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
So, as we know that adaptation is the area of psychology, so it would be a great opportunities for us to hear from someone who belongs to this field and who is making a career to ensure the mental health of people and to find a way to determine the psychological state of human being. We are fortunate enough to have someone like that in this webinar. I'm talking about someone who is a renowned psychologist and an affiliated member of Indian Psychoanalytical Society. She is the head of psychometric assessment of Manav Zameen Foundation. She is assistant secretary of the Eastern Zonal Psychological Association and associated with Girindo Shekhar Clinic as a psychologist, which is running by the Indian Psychoanalytical Society. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ms. Atrayee Chakroborty, ma'am.
Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yeah, ma'am. Yes, yes, ma'am. You are.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the deep introduction. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. S.N. Banerjee, sir, Director of HIM, and Dr. Saurabh Ganguly, Dr. Jyotir Mojumdar for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to share my views with the young minds. Well, first of all, I would like to apologize because I don't have any slides. And it's a type of my adaptation I'm going on because in this age of technology, I considered myself as technologically impaired. So there is no slide, and mine is a old method, that is the lecture method. So I hope you will enjoy and you will go through what I am trying to convince here in my lecture. Today, my concentration will be fully on the psychological perspective of adaptation. So, what is adaptation? It is the process by which an individual or organism or species becomes better suited to its environment. Adaptation does not only happens in biology or physiologically. There is cognitive adaptation also, and this cognitive adaptation reflects in the behavior of the individual. So in other words, we can say that adaptation is a process in which an individual tends to adjust to its environment. This process may involve bringing change into oneself in order to suit better. Also, the process involves changing the environment and finding an entirely new one. How effectively an individual will adapt to the situation, that depends on certain cognitive processes like perception, memory, learning, reasoning, and problem solving. Perception. What is perception? It is a way in which something is regarded, understood, and interpreted. If the person or the individual has the ability to interpret the situation as it is, without any emotional connotation, without any subjective biasness, then there are chances that the person may adapt to the situation in a better way. Second is learning. Learning is acquisition of new skills and knowledge through study and experiences. In our daily life, we learn many things. Every day we learn many things, we acquire many skills. And we not only learn them, we also implement our previous learning to new situations so that we can adapt in a better way. Next is the memory part. Memory is the retention of information over the period of time for the purpose of influencing future action. If we learn and we don't retain, that is of no use. We need to retain our learn. We need to record, encode our learning so that in future, if it is necessary, we can use whatever we have learned and find out a solution in a problematic situation. Next is reasoning. Reasoning is thinking rationally, thinking logically. And again, if a person is able to think rationally, think logically, then there are chances that the person will be fitted best in the environment, in a changing environment also. And the final one is the problem solving. See, whenever we face a problem or whenever there is a change in the situation, if we have adequate perception, if we can retain our learning, if we can implement our learning in a way, if we can maintain our rationality, then definitely we will find out a solution so that we can come out of the situation, and or we can adapt to the situation in a perfect way or in a healthy way. In this context, I would like to discuss about two theories mainly, but briefly. Don't worry, I will not go very long. So briefly, I'm going to discuss about two theories. Number one is the cognitive theory of adaptation. It was proposed by Taylor in 1983. Every time when I study a theory, I thought that what made the person to develop such a theory, just to make us read, remember, write it down in the examination and get marks? Perhaps not. So the background of this, if we go through the background for this theory, we will find that Taylor was very impressed by the fact that human psyche has an extremely excellent ability to withstand any personal tragedy or any severe setbacks. Yes, everybody cannot do that, but most people can, and that too without any professional help. So when she tried to find out the answer, why, how human mind works and how can it withstand all the personal tragedies, She started her experiment on several women with breast cancer. She interviewed them and analyzed the data, and then she proposed a theory where she found that, according to her, the process of adjustment centers around three themes. First, a search for meaning in the experience. This includes an effort to understand the event, like what led the incident, what is the cause of the incident, and what is going to the impact of the incident on the individual or on the community or on the society. Second, an attempt to regain mastery over the event, means gaining control over the event, like what can be done in future so that similar like situations can be prevented. Also, what can be done now at this moment to combat with the situation. And finally, an effort to restore self-esteem through self-enhancing evaluations, like finding ways to feel good about oneself again. See, in this pandemic situation, as everybody, Director Sir has said, and as Veera Madam said, this pandemic has done many things to us, and this is an eye-opening situation for us. So in this pandemic situation, we can see that many people are losing their jobs, and this is a major setback in one's life. So based on this theory, those people will adapt properly only if they go through these three stages. Like first, they will analyze what caused the termination, what are the causes of his or her termination, and what is going to be the initial impact of the termination, or whether there is any long-term impact of that termination or not, both economically and socially. Second, what can be done in future so that they can prevent this termination again, this type of termination again, and also what can be done now so that one can prevent the situation and manage the situation. Finally, it's very natural when anybody gets a termination letter, they feel low, the self-esteem reduced down, there are self-doubts, they all have all those things. But if the person tries to think about the previous achievements which he have gone through and evaluate himself, then the person can find out a way to feel good about him again. And this can again enhance the self-esteem of that person. So by this method, by this process, the person can combat with the setback of his or her life. Another psychologist, Jean Piaget, he was a Swiss psychologist, and he has done an extensive study on child development. He stated that subject's adaptation comes from the ongoing search for the balance between the process of assimilation and accommodation. What is assimilation? Assimilation occurs when we modify or change new information to fit into what we already know. And accommodation occurs when we restructure or modify what we know so that the new information can fit in. Let's have an example. Suppose a parent is reading a story to a child, and the parent said that, see, this is the picture of a dog. So when the child sees the picture of a dog, he started constructing a schema about the dog. What is a schema? Schema is a pattern of thought or behavior that organizes and categorizes information. So when the parent shows a picture of a dog, the initial schema of the dog develops, and the child thinks that, okay, this is a dog. It has 4 legs. It has 1 tail. Then one day he sees a dog in the park, and when he sees the dog in the park, he tries to match with his initial schema So he goes for the checklist. Okay, it has 2 ears, it has 4 legs, it has a tail, but there are some additional informations also, like it barks, it licks, and it has fur. So the child doubts whether it is a dog or not. The child comes to the parent and asks the parent whether it is a dog or not. The parents confirms that yes, it is a dog. And then assimilation occurs when the child accommodates new information to its existing information and form a new schema about the dog. Next day, the child sees a cat in the park. Now, with his newly formed schema, he was able to acknowledge that though it has some trait of a dog, it may not be a dog. But still, he goes for the checklist. Okay, it has 2 ears, it has a tail, it has 4 legs, it has fur, but it doesn't bark. Rather, it has a different sound like meow, and it can climb a tree also. Then the child again gets confused. He comes to his parents and asks whether it is a whether it is a dog or not. Then the parents said, yes, it is not a dog, it is a cat. And then accommodation happens when the child reconstructs what he has known to fit in the new information and develops a new schema for the cat. In our everyday life, we face many situations and we try to either assimilate or accommodate new information in order to adapt with those situations. Now there will be questions that why we do need to adapt. What if we don't want to adapt? Adaptation increases the chances of survival. It helps the individual to be fit better in his or her environment. Also corrects any flawed or mutation or any flawed behavior from the perspective of psychology that do not benefit the individual or the organism. We have gone through the discussion about what is adaptation, what are the process of adaptation, how it is beneficial. So does it sound very easy? Is it? I think perhaps not, because there are certain factors which makes the process of adaptation distressful and difficult. First of all, when we were discussing about the definitions of adaptation, we said that adaptation is a process of adjustment. Now, there is a slight negative connotation with this word adjustment. Adjustment is not wishful, rather, it is forceful. We adjust to things, those we don't want to. We are not willing to adjust, and those are against our wish. Let me give an example here. Let me share an example with you. Recently, it happened with me. We all knew about the pandemic and the complete shutdown, lockdown was declared. After the complete lockdown was declared, sometimes after I called my mother, and I found that she was in a very bad mood. She was irritated rather. And I asked her, what happened? She said, I'm not liking this lockdown anymore. And I asked, why? Why are you not liking it? She said, she was so surprised, in fact, that she nearly screamed at me and said, don't you know why? I cannot get out of my house. I cannot meet my sisters. And I asked again, before the lockdown, how many times you have been getting out of the house to buy grocery or to buy vegetables or to meet your sisters? She said, probably once a week or rarely twice a week. I said, why didn't you go out every day? She replied, it is very stressful to going out every day. So what I used to do, I used to chalk out what I have to do. I do try to finish it one day and come out and come back to my house and I rest, take rest. Then I asked, so now what has changed? Before the lockdown also, you would have go out of the house very rarely. And after the lockdown also, you're going out of the house rarely. So what has changed? Now, she is my mother. And in our field, charity never begins at home. So she became very angry and she started showering all her love, motherly love to me. But the point is, before lockdown, staying at home was my wish. And after lockdown, staying at home was against my wish, against my will. So, in fact, the situation was same, but because it was against my wish, my mother found it very difficult to cope up with the situation. Next is attitude towards the situation. In simplest term, attitude can be defined as positive or negative evaluation of objects, thoughts, or situations. Attitude, they mainly have three components. A cognitive component means the thought and beliefs people hold about any object, situation, or thought. An affective component means the emotional feeling attached with that object or situation. And the behavioral component mean to act in a certain way towards that object or situation. If an individual have a negative attitude towards a situation, believe me, it is very difficult for the individual to cope up in any situation. In this pandemic, we can see that there is a total upside down change in educational system, and every week I'm getting call from parents for counseling sessions or therapeutic sessions for the child, and the sole complaint was the child is not being able to cope up with this online procedure of learning. And some of the time, I know it's not a very good data, but some of the in some of the cases I have found that because they have a fixed set of negative emotions, a fixed of negative thought about this online procedure, it is very difficult for them to cope up with the situation right this moment. Again, I can share an experience with you, and this is also an in-house experience. My father, he's a person who loves to stay inside the house. He gets very angry or agitated whenever someone says him to go out of the house or visit some relative's house. So this pandemic situation and this restricted outing is like a dream come true for him. He's very happy that nobody is saying, asking him to go out, rather insisting him to stay inside the house. And because he have a positive attitude towards the situation, what happens? He happily adjusted with the situation without any complaint. But in this context, I would like to also say that not only the attitude of the individual that matters, but also the people, the important people surrounding that individual, their attitude also matters. Like if the people surrounding the individual have positive attitude towards change, if they are not vulnerable, they're spontaneous, and they're welcoming towards change, then it will indirectly help the individual to cope up effectively. Another important factor is past experience. If the past experience of this adjustment, outcome of the adjustment is unpleasant, unhappy, that will result in resistance, that will result in inhibition. Automatically, that person will not willing to go for change, will stuck himself to something which he does very easily. But if the process of adjustment and the outcome of adjustment is pleasant, happy, then it will facilitate further future adjustment processes. Next, we have, you see, when we are accustomed to certain things, it creates a level of comfort, what we say, the comfort zone. And we try our best to stay inside that comfort zone because it is convenient also. And when the situation changes and we are forced to come out of that comfort zone in unknown territory, then distress happens because we may not find the comfort which we are seeking for in that unknown territory. And that in turn results in negative connotation, and that in turn results in inhibiting the process of adaptation. Finally, the last one, here is anxiety. Whatever is unknown, it creates anxiety. Suppose you have an examination tomorrow and you know what are the questions, what will be the questions in the exam. Will you be anxious? You will not. But because we don't know that what will be the questions, we get anxious. So whatever is unknown, uncertainty, unfamiliarity, that creates anxiety. And when we are in some unknown territory, we are not familiar with everything. We are uncertain about many things, like what to do, how to do things, whether it will work out at all. And these all create significant amount of anxiety in an individual. And that creates doubts. Okay. And because anxiety is an unpleasant state of mind and we don't want to harbor those things, what we do, we inhibit ourselves and we stick to the areas of certainty, which also again make us unable to cope effectively. Now I've come to the last segment of my discussion. Like, so what? These are the factors we know. We have come to know that these are the factors which affects healthy coping. So what can we do? First and foremost is acceptance. Without acceptance, nothing can be done. It is necessary to accept the situation as it is. I'm again saying as it is, without any subjective biasness, without any emotional connotation, just as it is. Like, okay, this is a situation and it required some change in my behavior or in my action so that I can fit better in this situation. And the process of change and the outcome of change may or may not be pleasant. So first we need to accept this fact that everything cannot be according to our wish. Okay. Nowadays, I hear it in my chambers very often. The teenagers, mainly the teenagers, they come to me and say that, ma'am, it's either my way or highway. No, believe me, there is no highway. There is always an alternative way. If there is no my way, there is always an alternative way. So first you need to accept that fact. Next is appraisal of the situation. What are the pros and cons of the situation? Whether there is any threat, indirect, direct, whether there is any threat, and if there is any threat, whether that is a perceived threat or actual threat, it needs to be analyzed. Then comes the coping resources, like what are the resources we have, and with those coping resources, how the thought process can be regulated and what the necessary behavioral changes can be made. Lastly, there's the final appraisal of what will be the impact of this coping resources or coping responses to the individual, also to the community. With these intervention strategies, it is possible to reconstruct, reorganize our cognitive processes so that all the distress regarding this coping and adjustment can reduce down. And it is expected, if a person can do that, the person can effectively and successfully adapt, as like Veera ma'am also said, that change is the only thing which is constant in life. With this note, I will end here and thank you very much for listening so attentively.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Your in-depth presentation on adaptation enriched us a lot. Thank you very much. So now we came to an end of the session, but actually we are planning to have a question answer session, but unfortunately no question has yet come. So maybe they are all spellbound. Also, we can say that silence means they are all agreed. So now I would like to say that a link is shared in the comment box, and you need to give a feedback to get the certificates. It's for the students. Okay. Thank you very much to all the distinguished guests, and indeed that was a wonderful session. I think students have enjoyed a lot, and now after end of the session we can summarize the whole session, and we can list up some valuable points. Like, first one is the COVID situation changes our life and teaches us the value of adaptation. Teaching should be two-way, and it should be industry oriented. But we should also remember that innovation is a different thing. It's not coincide with the advancement of technology. And next is the adaptation is the area of human mind. Our body is always try to adapt things. There are so many ways to assess the human mind, and adaptation means the adjustment. And we have to adjust in a way to survive. And adaptation depends on the personality of the individual and the situation. And also lastly, adaptation, the main challenges of adaptation is the fear of unknown. Fear of unknown is the main challenges of adaptation. So thank you again to Dr. Veera Talukdar, Ms. Atrayee Chakroborty, Dr. S.N. Bandyopadhyay for sharing their views. Also, I would like to thank Dr. Joyita, Ms. Shushmi Vishwas of the examination department for arranging such short and crispy session. And lastly, I would like to thank Mr. Shubhra Prakash Naik for his contribution as technical support. And lastly, I would like to thank all who are watching the session and make the session more relevant and significant. Thank you. Thank you.